the martial law. Rock and roll, the color wars. I can't take it anymore. We didn't start the fire. It was always burning since the world.
Hello, and welcome to Of the People. I am Robert Chernin. Thank you so much for joining us again. This week, a somber week. We commemorate September 11th, 2001. There is not a person who is of age and of memory that has any doubt as to where they were at the moment they heard, or the moment the plane struck the Twin Towers, the Pentagon. Everybody knows it is a somber moment in U.S. history. A lot has changed since then, and a lot hasn't changed. Politics was supposed to stop at the water's edge. And if the one day that we can all come together should have been and should be 9/11, some 3,000 Americans died. I think the number was 2,960 something. I don't count the 19 hijackers. Thank you very much. I'm sure that I will get a lot of crap for that, but I don't care. The first responders who rushed into the World Trade Center buildings, some 300 or 400 firemen and police who rushed in to help America. It was the best of America. It showcased the best of America. It still showcased the best of America. And we need to remember and we need to honor that. A lot has changed since then. We now have Department of Homeland Security. We now have the Patriot Act. We now have TSA at every airport. So you can no longer walk up to every plane. Part of that I understand, and I think part of that America understands. But not only did it empower the federal government to become a much bigger behemoth and take away more of our rights. I mean, life is fragile. We all know that. There are no guarantees in life. There's supposed to be guarantees under the law. And I don't even want to talk about President Biden being at ground zero on the day after, because he clearly wasn't. And Kamala Harris was. I don't want to talk about that. Politics for that day needs to stop. But we need to remember that this was a day that America did come together. It shows what America can do when we are not divided by the politicians. And we honor those who have sacrificed, not only in 9/11, which was obviously the worst attack on U.S. soil, but in all the wars and the military and the people who are the first responders. We need to remember, because if you don't remember and you forget, the old expression is, if those who forget the past are condemned to repeat it. So we should honor those who died. We should honor those who gave their life. We should honor the first responders. And we should remember on this day of all other days for 9/11 that we are all Americans. Folks, we'll be back with the main segment of the show. Hello, and welcome back to Of the People. I'm Robert Chernin with
Ericka Reddick.
And if it's Thursday, it must be Throwup Thursday. We have back with us that leading fountain of Republican knowledge, Jay the Republican.
Jay,
welcome
the
back.
Republican.
It's great to be on the show. You guys are getting it done here, and the viewership has been giving me great feedback and have said very good things about you all as well.
Oh, well,
They must not be listening to the show.
What?
Well, I can't vouch for that.
All right, it's Thursday. What are we throwing up today?
I want to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly this week. One of the things that we want to look back on is the 9/11 and the attack on our country. And we should remember that it is a day of remembrance. It's a day when we lost about 3,000 people from a source outside this country. And this Ilhan Omar talked about some people did some things. Well, we know who those people are, and we know what they did. They killed Americans. But the thing that's really made me sick this week is our president, who decides he needs to take a nap instead of coming to ground zero or to D.C. and the Pentagon. So he stops in Alaska and makes some political comments that are based around his politics and his reelection, and not about the people who suffered and died. And the fact that New York firefighters, over 340 of them have died since the attack on our country in 2001. Not only that, what's even worse is he picked that day when we were attacked by foreign nations to placate and to give $6 billion to Iran. He's gone and given money to this country who is state-sponsored terrorism around the world. Someone who was given billions and billions of dollars by Obama back in the Obama-Biden administration. That thank goodness that Donald Trump came along and stopped us giving money and stopped this whole deal that was benefiting only Iran and their nuclear program. So what he's done is he's taken this day when we have to think about the attack of innocent people and these firefighters and police that went into a building when everyone else was running out. So what he's done is he's defamed those hardworking Americans, those who risk their life every day, so that he could give money to one of the axis of evil. I think we have to realize that it's Iran, it's North Korea, it's China, and it's Russia that are the axis of evil. You know, Ronald Reagan talked about it when he was president. But what we're doing is we're allowing Iran right now that within 4 months of today, they will have the capability of having 10 nuclear warheads. And it's all being financed by the Biden administration. We need to stop it. It makes me sick, and we can't continue to let it happen. We need to go to Congress, and we need to have Congress put a stop to this outrageousness and this un-American act by this president and this administration. That's what's making me sick this week.
Jay.
So that's the ugly, right? Is there a good here?
The good is remembering in the remembrance of those who gave their lives tragically on 9/11 in 2001. Those who ran into the building when everyone else was running out.
So, Jay, I got a question for you. So we have actually a really good friend who was a emergency responder on 9/11. This many years later, he's still waiting on a determination or help with medical issues and things like that. And to me, is this the first time in 20 years that an American president has not really recognized the day with some kind of a memorial or some kind of visit? Like, I feel like that's normally a thing that they do every year, not go gallivanting around the world.
This is the first time that the president of the United States was not at Ground Zero in New York or at the Pentagon to let America know that we still care and that it's still important to us. Wow. You know, one of the biggest events that they're handling is when the first gentleman, who I don't know if he's a gentleman but he's married to the vice president, went to Pennsylvania. That was a big deal. That's not the level of response that we should be having in this country.
Yeah.
This
to be
honest,
honest,
talked about Pearl Harbor. We lost many more people on 9/11 than we did at Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor, we lost about 2,400 people. We've lost 3,000, almost 3,000 on that day, and we've lost hundreds since then. And there are still people who are dying from the after effects of that tragic day. And he's in Alaska because he was tired from visiting India.
Wow.
I think the first lady was in, I believe, D.C. The vice president was in New York City. But you are correct. It is the first time that a sitting president did not honor 9/11, both those who perished in the attack and the first responders who really, to me, was the best, represented the best of America.
That's right.
Who selflessly went into essentially a war zone to rescue other Americans. And, you know, I have lots of friends in New York City, certainly within fire and police. It is a day that should, I mean, politics should stop at the water's edge. Well, politics should stop on 9/11 and Ground Zero as well. So I agree with that.
And just the embarrassment, and we're talking the good, the bad, and the ugly. There was so much good that came out of this, and this country did unite. This country's not going to unite around this president who picks such an important day in our history to give money to one of our enemies, someone who's vowed to kill us infidels.
Literally. kill the Americans. They chant things like that. So the same kinds of folks who committed the atrocities on 9/11 got rewarded on 9/11 with money, basically, is what
Absolutely.
you're saying.
And what the administration has said is, well, that money can only go to humanitarian causes.
The Ayatollah just came out. The Ayatollah just came out and said they will spend it on anything they want to.
They absolutely said that, and that I was going to mention that. But one of the things that they have the opportunity to do is to go to Russia and go to China and give them those billions of dollars that they need right now to help their economies and help their war effort, so that they can get enriched uranium, so that they can build a stronger, more powerful nuclear weapon system that the Obama-Biden administration so carefully arranged so that they could be a greater threat than they ever were.
Shameful.
The good, the bad, and the ugly, pretty simple. That's my Throwup Thursday.
Jay, we appreciate you joining us on Throwup Thursday. Come back again.
I appreciate it. Thank you all for what you do.
We're fighting the fight, and we're glad to have you. Folks, you're listening to Of the People with Robert Chernin and Ericka Reddick. We will be right back. America came into being based on a shared belief and a common set of values. Unlike other nations that were bound together based on common ancestry, race, or caste, we came into being based on a simple and shared set of ideals. That the power of government is based on the consent of the governed. That life, the freedom to live life on our own terms in our own way, free from government interference, and liberty, our most precious value, and the pursuit of happiness, which means we are free to pursue that which we choose, with the knowledge and courage to know that nothing is guaranteed to us in this life. Those values, America was founded on these basic inalienable rights. Freedom to pray to God in our own way. Freedom to think and speak freely without fear of punishment or harm. And freedom to gather in our places of worship and in our local taverns. And freedom to defend ourselves, our families, our homes, and our neighbors as we see fit. The American Center for Education and Knowledge is dedicated to protecting American exceptionalism anywhere and everywhere it is threatened. ASIC is a 501c3 and depends on your tax-deductible donations. Please help us continue our fight. Hello, and welcome back to Of the People. I am Robert Chernin with my lovely co-host, Ericka Reddick.
Hello, Robert.
Hello, Ericka.
Hello.
Jay, Throwup Thursday, the Republican. So let's talk about this Iran deal. So there was an Iran deal, and just everybody to frame the reference, and I know people's memories are short, but don't forget it was President Obama during the, as Jay the Republican says, the Obama-Biden administration. And I would argue that we're either in the Biden-Obama administration or we're really just back in the Obama administration. But during the height of the Obama years, in the middle of the night, a photographer saw, I think we had like $12 billion in cash that was rolled onto a plane in the middle of the night to pay off the Iranians to accept the Iran nuclear deal, right? It was like, it was pishkesh, right? It was payola. It was basically bribing them. So now you have President Biden or Anthony or Anton or whatever his name is, Blinken, sort of on the winking, blinking, and nod, Secretary of State guy, right? I mean, what else? How else can you explain it? So now they're giving, and the way it's being billed in the press is we were giving $6 billion to free up 5 Americans. And on the surface of it, and I want to get to the whole 9/11 thing in a second in terms of its coordination, but on the surface of it, even that is not truthful. Because if you read the fine print, we are actually getting 5 American prisoners freed. In exchange, we are giving them 5 Iranian prisoners that are being held by us.
Wow.
No one sees that in the press. So what's really going on is there is a prisoner swap. Oh, and by the way, to sweeten the deal, we're giving you $6 billion. I know it's your own money that was frozen, and you're only going to use it for humanitarian purposes, which is a crock,
Baloney.
right? As we said, the Ayatollah has already come out and said, the hell with that. We're going to use this for whatever we
That's right.
want. So I think Jay was right. But it begs the question, how far in the tank is the media that they buy the story that the administration gives them, which is, oh, we're giving $6 billion of their own money only to be used for humanitarian aid for 5 American prisoners, right? And again, is an American prisoner worth $1 billion or $1 billion, $1.2 billion each? Probably, right? If it was my family or yours. But it's not the whole story. You never get the whole story. We're releasing 5 prisoners of theirs. They're releasing 5 prisoners of ours. And oh, by the way, here's $6 billion.
Yeah. Well, I think that just...
Now, did you read that anywhere?
No, and that's...
Or am I the only one who sees
That's
this?
what I think, it's one of the reasons why the American people do not trust the media. We know, and we've seen over the years, that it's basically just another wing of the Democratic Party. It's basically...
Well, it is now. It is
right?
now.
I mean,
Sure.
it's essentially like the PR wing of the Democratic Party. So it doesn't surprise me at all, but no, I did not hear about it. And I think it just goes to actually show the weakness of the Biden administration. If our government...
Wait a minute. I have to cut you off. It doesn't show the weakness, Ericka. It shows their intent. This was not done from a position of weakness. It wasn't even, I would argue, done from a position of stupidity. Like, we've had these discussions and arguments, you and I, where, oh, they're stupid. Oh, no. Never underestimate your enemy. They are not stupid. The Biden administration is doing this with intent. My question to you is, and I know we're sort of we're winging this. If they're doing it with intent, which I would bet you all the money in the world and all the tea in China, why are they doing it with intent? What's the purpose?
Well, and that's the question. It's clearly an unequal exchange, and so if your goal, and I believe that it is to destabilize the American position around the globe, then this makes a lot of sense. Give money to our enemies. Show weakness in that you are willing to take less in a negotiation than you get. Right? Because,
well, that's for
sure.
I mean,
that's
for sure.
That's what when I say weakness, that's what I mean is, okay, you negotiated a crappy deal. They got way more than we got out of it. So not only are you, arming and equipping one of our greatest enemies and the enemy of our ally, Israel, but you are demonstrating massive weakness. So
and again, I have to disagree. I don't think they're demonstrating weakness. I think they're demonstrating intent. And I want to go back to what Jay the Republican
they can be.
said.
They're not mutually exclusive, right? So,
Yeah, but wait a minute.
Okay.
Wait a minute. They're not mutually exclusive. I think this was done specifically to benefit China, whose economy is in shambles right now. Right. So to me, it's the China card. Like the two big cards in the Biden administration are the Ukraine card, right, and the China card. Right. You can argue the mayor's daughter of Moscow. That's a different conversation. But there's no question because we're always focusing now on Burisma and Ukraine and the war, and we're going to talk about that too later in the show. But let's not forget the paramount connection between the Chinese Communist Party, Hunter Biden, and the big guy, right? Mm-hmm. So to me, and there is this axis of evil, China, Iran, South Korea, and by the way, I'm sorry, North Korea. Take it back to the South Koreans. The North Korean Kim Jong-un is going to Moscow as we speak.
Yep.
To meet with Vladimir Putin.
Skipped the G20 summit. Right. Okay, so China skipped the G20 summit in order to go to Russia.
But does this make sense to you? I mean, tell me. Punch holes in my theory. I think China is the driver of this. The money, right? The money. Look, the truth is, I don't think Iran would have released any prisoners for their own people because Iran does not value their own people's lives like we do. So you needed the money anyway. But the ayuch, right? The double kill here for them is they get the PR victory and they get to curry favor with their masters in China, who to me are driving this deal because of the leverage they have on the Biden administration and specifically the Biden crime family. Tell me where I'm wrong.
Ooh, I would not be surprised
Ding, ding, ding,
at
ding.
all. I feel like that is a very reasonable conclusion to come to. When we see that these countries are, colluding, working together, when we know that the Chinese government is, that Biden is in the pocket of China and Ukraine and all of the corruption and the money that's flowing, right? How many billions of dollars is it that's now missing that we've sent to Ukraine?
It's not missing. Someone knows where it is. We just don't know where it is.
And so it's, it almost, again, it feels like we're basically just funding our enemies, funding corruption, and it all can be tied back to the Biden family, the Biden crime family.
Well, you know what? If you're going to fund corruption, I think we have enough of a full-time job funding corruption at home. We don't have to extend it and fund corruption abroad, right? And I'm not sure that first of all, Joe Biden is too big to fit in China's pocket. But they certainly have, a gun to the back of his head. And as we've talked about all along, I don't think that he will be the nominee. By the way, this week, Speaker of the House McCarthy announced an inquiry. They're launching a formal impeachment inquiry into Joe Biden and the Biden crime family. Although, folks, the Biden crime family is my term. It's not Speaker McCarthy's term. But they did launch a formal inquiry, which is the first step in the process. But here's the thing. We talk about the Democrats and we talk about the progressives or the woke, whatever you want to call them. They're not stupid. There are two immutable laws in international politics, right? Okay. The first one is realpolitik with capital R, small k, and it basically says that an enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? We saw that in World War II. We were aligned with Soviet Union until our interests didn't align, and then we went to war with them. Essentially, It was the Cold War.
Right.
That principle, right? The common interest that Iran and China and North Korea and Russia have is anti-American. And of those four, the preeminent power is China. So that's the first law, right? An enemy of my enemy is my friend. The second law is what I call Pavlov's law or Pavlov's dog, right? And we broke that law too, because if you give Iran, for whatever reason, $6 billion, you're incentivizing more bad behavior. If you had said to Iran, look, we'll release your 5 prisoners, you release ours, okay.
Yep.
That's different. But because they function differently, all we are doing is encourage. Look, this is the law of the street, right? International politics isn't much different. It's how do you deal with a bully? If you incentivize the bully and you say, oh, by the way, we're going to your bad behavior, here's $6 billion.
Yep.
Do you think they're not going to do it again and take more prisoners?
Well, and look,
it's got $6 billion.
And look at China is now further aggressing on Taiwan at a time when our Navy has been. When our Navy is struggling to respond with the veracity that it used to, with like lack of recruitment and the cuts in training. So at a time when we need our Navy to be at its peak, the Biden administration has weakened it. China is aggressing on Taiwan. Then we give $6 billion to
because
Iran, who is their friend. And then Again, you just look at it and you go, this can only be an intentional weakening of the United States position around the world. And I'm in 100% agreement with you, Robert.
I'm not sure if they're intentionally weakening America or they just don't care because their interests lie elsewhere.
Yeah.
I don't think they sit around the kitchen table, or in this case, the situation room, and go, and they rub their hands and they go, oh, how can we weaken America more? I don't think it's that transparent. I think that they buy into the international world order. They think America's day on, as the preeminent superpower are numbered and over. I think everything, if you see, when you looked at the Obama administration, and you understood that he was an anti-colonialist, so that America was a bad country. It was founded on racism, original sin. America did bad things around the world as a colonial power. So everything he did viewed America as a colonial, oppressing or oppressor power, right?
Yeah.
Everything in the Biden administration takes along the same thing, which is they think America is a bad country. I don't think they would say that, but I think they think that America's power is waned, and why shouldn't they cash into the New World Order?
Oh, see,
which
that's
entrenches the elite power anyway, and they're the elite power.
I think that's
of
why
the world, according to Robert.
I think that's why we have to assume that it's intentional. See, that's what I feel like you just made the case that it is intentional, that they are intentionally weakening it, and that is the goal.
Perhaps. Okay. Good point. A
Time
good
will
place to
tell.
go to break. We're getting a high sign from Lord Benjamin. Folks, you are listening to Of the People, at least of these two people, Ericka and I. We're going
That's
to break.
right.
We're going to make some money, and we'll be right back. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Robert Chernin.
And I'm Ericka Reddick.
And we are Of the People. You can find us on Rumble. You can find me on Twitter at RB Chernin. And
And I am at Ericka Reddick.
look us up. You'll be entertained.
That we guarantee.
Absolutely. She's never wrong.
Ever. Just ask my husband.
Hello, and welcome back to Of the People. I'm Robert Chernin with
Ericka Reddick.
my lovely co-host, Ericka. The whole thing to me about the Iran deal, I mean, basically Biden is funding Iranian nukes. There's no other way to look at it, right? I mean, you can look at it any which way you want. But I want to talk about in terms of weapons to your enemy, domestically. If you see what was going on in New Mexico, and the interesting thing is, to me, it was radioactive. So I'm sure you've heard the governor of New Mexico, and I'm trying to get her name, which is Governor Michelle Grisham, right? Basically makes a gun grab.
That's right.
She declares a public health emergency, and under the public health emergency, allegedly for mass shootings in New Mexico, and because of the fentanyl crisis, I still haven't made that connection. She has outlawed not just concealed carry, because if you read the press, she signed an executive order that people can't conceal carry. No, people can't
it's
publicly
open
carry concealed or open carry
Period.
in New Mexico.
Yep.
Right?
Even legal concealed carry license holders, nobody can carry a gun unless you're a
Cannot.
cop.
And the thing that just makes me crazy is that what no one really understands. I mean, they're starting to, because even some of the Democrats are basically saying, we support gun control, but you can't do this.
That's right.
You have a state governor, a statewide office holder, a governor of a state. And keep in mind, we are a federalist system, right?
Yeah.
We have a state governor nullifying the federal constitution on right to bear arms under the pretense of a public emergency. Which, by the way, isn't that what they did with COVID? They nullified First Amendment. They nullified Second Amendment, right?
Yes.
They nullified, right? Based on what? For the safety of all.
Public health emergency.
Right.
Yep. That's why I don't understand why so many people are surprised or, like this is somehow unique at this point. The governors have been doing this. The federal government has been doing this the last several years over COVID and whatever else. So the idea that she's doing something uniquely horrifying is sort of laughable to me. I mean, obviously, I think it's horrifying and stupid, but why wouldn't she think she can get away with it? They've been getting away with this nonsense for years now.
Well, I think that's true, but I have a couple different minds on this, or a couple different thoughts. I have one mind, just mine. I have a couple different thoughts on this. So if you followed this in the press,
Yeah.
And we're talking basically mostly Albuquerque. I forget the name of the county that Albuquerque is in. My geographic knowledge is not that good. But I did know that Chester Arthur was the second president elected from Vermont besides Calvin Coolidge.
Oh.
I got that. I did have
we
that.
We learned that.
That was on break, folks. We do talk on break. But so the sheriff, the chief of police, the mayor of Albuquerque have all come out and said, we are not going to enforce the law.
Yep.
And the problem I have with that,
or the
I
executive
disagree
order.
with her ability, and I want to talk about 10th Amendment in a second. I disagree that she has the authority level to nullify the federal Constitution under the 10th Amendment, which we'll talk about.
Yep.
But what it also does, she signs the executive order. The local officials say we're not obeying the law. And even though I agree with the sentiment, what it really fosters is a more of a lawless culture, because you cannot cherry pick your laws. So I don't like the law. I'll challenge it in court. I think she's dead wrong. But it now forces the Republicans, or I don't even know if the Republicans, I take that back, but I mean, you now forcing state officials to say we're only going to enforce the laws that we agree with. And that's what the Democrats do all the time.
Well, here's the thing, though, is it's not a law, first of all. It's an executive order.
But it has the power of law. Executive orders.
So the sheriffs actually are also elected officials, and they also swear an oath to not only the United States Constitution, but their state constitution. So if she has an executive order that is unconstitutional and thereby illegal, they have no obligation to enforce it. In fact,
wait a minute. Who determines that? So I declare Robert's World, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Who is John Galt. He's Robert. Robert's World, I declare you can't carry guns. You, in your mind, think it's unconstitutional. Who are you to say whether it's constitutional or not?
The Constitution.
According to whose interpretation? As a living document or an originalist?
Oh, as either. It's been upheld by the Supreme Court multiple times.
But you're missing you understand my point. You as a private citizen, even as a public official, are not in a position to render judgment as to what is constitutional or not. Only the courts can do that. And you can say the courts have already ruled on this issue, but the courts have never ruled on this specific issue, whether a governor can nullify a right to bear arms under a federal constitution in her state, citing a public health emergency. They certainly didn't rule on it in COVID, and they didn't rule on it with masks and shutdowns. So there is no precedent here.
I think that was part of the whole problem, though, is they were trying to establish they got people to go along with nonsense during COVID that was absolutely illegal and unconstitutional. So it's not a matter of legality or
and according to me.
It's a matter of what will people comply with, whether it's legal or not.
So wait. Do you think that the mandate and the vaccinations and those things were legal or illegal?
Illegal.
And second part of the question, do you think they thought it was illegal and they were, we know this is illegal and we're doing it anyway? Or did they think that we don't, or this
100%.
Really? See, I don't think that they think in those terms. I don't think they made the determination that says, well, this is legal, we're going to do it, or this is illegal, we're still going to do it. I don't think the legal-illegal quotient or consideration comes into their worldview.
Oh, no, it absolutely does. That's why they were,
Talk to me.
The Biden administration was doing things like going through OSHA to try to get through some of their mandates. So they knew that a lot of this stuff was illegal or unconstitutional. So what they did was try to force it through the administrative state, which you and I agree and have discussed on the show multiple times, how, the fourth branch of government, the unelected administrative state, is a
AKA
massive,
the deep state.
exactly is a huge part of the problem. So if they can push through some of these unconstitutional mandates and rules or whatever through the administrative state, they're bypassing Congress. They're trying to bypass the law. They're trying to bypass the Constitution. And so, I mean, even like with something as simple as the student loan repayment, they were like, Joe Biden was like, I know I don't have the constitutional authority to do it, but I'm going to do it anyway. And then somebody's going to have to take me to court to prove that I can't.
But that's our system. Look, I do not doubt that they are trying to envelop this with the veneer of legitimacy or the veneer of law. What I'm questioning and what I'm saying to you is I don't think that their considerations are, we want to do this, is it legal or illegal? I don't think they go through that sort of
they don't care.
mental exercise. They don't care. They say, we want to do X. They work from the end backwards. We want to accomplish X. And we need to envelop it in a veneer of legality so we can accomplish X through doing it through this department or with this edict or this executive order, and they backfill. Yes. So it's not like they go through the process as to what would a legal outcome be. They go to the outcome, right? The means, the ends justify the means to these people. Because here's the thing. Have you read her executive order?
Oh, it's wild.
I happen to have it with me.
Oh,
you know how I like to read things.
I love it.
So the governor comes out and basically, and she's citing that there is an immediate need to quickly reduce gun violence and illegal drug use. Now, someone has to explain to me where the fentanyl crisis relates to the drug thing, other than the gangs shoot each other up for drugs. But I get that. Well, here's what she said. She said the recent shooting death.
State?
You what?
Aren't they a border state?
Of course they are.
What? Oh my God. Oh my. Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No. Listen, the people crossing illegally can have guns. The people in New Mexico can't have guns.
Fentanyl.
Right.
Fentanyl.
Are you screeching again? Are you screeching again?
Oh my God.
No screeching.
Nope. Okay.
We're going to have a screech-free zone. I want that in the contract. I want a screech-free zone. Breathe. Breathe deep. So here's what she says. The recent shooting death of a 13-year-old girl on July 28th, a 5-year-old girl on August 14th, and an 11-year-old boy on September 6th, as well as 2 mass shootings this year. By the way, there was one in Farmington, New Mexico. I can't find the other one, so I think we're embellishing, but maybe. Spurred us to declare gun violence a public health emergency. Today's public health order includes directives to curb the gun violence and drug abuse that the governor has declared to be a public health emergency. She goes on to say, hang on, you're going to love this part. And when New Mexicans are afraid to be in crowds, to take their kids to school, to leave a baseball game, when their very right to exist is threatened. So you have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So your right to exist is threatened? I mean, I sit there and I read this, and my eyes roll back in my head. And yet I still come back to what we talked about, which is the Democrats work from the end backwards.
Yeah.
Whether or not something is legal, as long as it can be enveloped in the veneer of legality through an agency or whatever, I don't think they give a damn.
Yeah.
What am I missing?
That's listen to that language. Isn't that the same language that we hear about, the LGBTQ,
right.
Whatever? Like,
why not? It worked for them.
I can't exactly. Oh, my right
worked
to
over
exist.
Here, worked over here, it works over there. Let's do it now for guns.
You're denying my ability to exist. No, you clearly exist. And guess what? My right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness is guaranteed. And it's supposed to be those rights.
Not anymore, apparently.
Guaranteed and protected by the government. And so the idea that, like...
Do you believe that?
We're going to...
You really believe the government? Hi, I'm from the government. I'm here to help you?
This is the thing. Okay, so tell me this, right, Robert? Like, basically what she's done, and correct me if I'm wrong, what she's done is she's made criminals out of the law-abiding citizens. So as a attempt to deal with the lawlessness created by Democrat policies, she is
right
creating criminals out
Well,
of
she's doing
law-abiding
but she's doing more than that.
citizens.
She's creating criminals. She is forcing law-abiding citizens to break the law, i.e., not just citizens, but the mayor, the chief of police, the sheriff, right?
Yeah.
You know what this really is? Do you remember last show? My monologue was on. I would test you, but I know you don't listen to me anyway. But that's okay. I'm not offended. Well, maybe a little.
Oh my God.
The monologue last show was for the safety of all.
That's right.
Right. And this is another one of, folks, it's that slippery slope. For the safety of all, you have to wear a mask.
Oh, for the safety of all,
you have to get a vaccine, even though it's untested.
for the
right?
safety of all, you have to be unsafe and not have the ability to defend yourself.
For the safety of all, you can't have a gun. Look, it flows from there. For the safety of all, you have to wear a mask, which now we know is false. For the safety of all, you have to get a vaccine. Not one, not two, but three. By the way, I can tell you something. If my dog got 3 vaccines for rabies and still got rabies, I tell you there's something wrong with the vaccine. But folks, that's a different discussion for a different day. Not going there. For the safety of all,
Yep.
you have to wear a mask. You have to have a vaccine. And for the safety of all, red flag laws, this is nothing more than a red flag law. Now the entire population is deemed to be risky, so none of them can have guns. Now, look, I don't think it holds up because, and folks, here's your history lesson. The 10th Amendment to the Constitution is what this is about. We are a federalist society, right? So, and it's a very simple. The 10th Amendment says the following. It's got to be like 20 words. Maybe 25. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. So the key here is the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution. Right to bear arms is clearly delegated to the people by the U.S. Constitution. But you're so correct. They have to now prove it in law, and you know,
Yep.
Governor Grisham is going like, bring it on. I look forward to the fight. I mean, someone needs to take that woman out behind the shed and beat her with a 2x4. This is wrong on so many levels. And no,
Well,
folks,
and-
I'm not preaching violence, and I'm not preaching violence against women. It's an expression. Get over yourself.
No, well, and this is one of the funny things that even pro-gun, like a gun safety advocate or whatever the heck, gun grabber, David Hogg, is saying that the
That's from
governor
the Parkland
can't do
shooting.
this.
He was
Yes,
at Parkland
exactly.
shooting. Parkland, Florida.
Exactly.
Right.
He's even come out and said the governor can't do this. Various gun grabbing federal officials have come out and said she can't do this. Now, I have a conspiracy theory about this. Do you want to hear what it is?
No, wait. You have a conspiracy
I
theory?
know. It's shocking.
I have to hear this.
Here's my theory.
What's
is
your
that
theory?
these gun grabbers that are coming out against this governor are statists. They believe and they want a federal government that is supreme, right? These are the same kind of folks who want to see us become communist, socialist, top down, telling us what to do. And so they don't want to see the governors think that they have more rights or power than the federal government. So even though they might agree with the sentiment, they don't like the idea that this governor thinks that she has more power than the federal government does. And that's why I think that they're coming out against her.
Do you know how you should never say your enemy is stupid? Maybe in this case I was wrong. It's just possible. You know, last time I made a mistake was like, I don't know, 1960 whatever.
Yeah.
But possibly. But I think
don't
that
know.
gives them. But look, I think that would give them too much credit to understand
credit?
the 10th Amendment. So you're basically saying, hey, we want the federal government to be supreme, therefore we don't want the states to be able to do this. And I think it's simpler than that. This is such an egregious, flagrant violation of a very simple constitutional principle as stated in not only the Second Amendment, but reaffirmed in the 10th Amendment. Because I'm a states' rights guy, by and large. That doesn't mean the states can do
Right.
everything. It basically says if the federal government can't do it, and it's not prohibited to, or federal government has this authority, and this authority that you have, and if its policy is silent, then by omission, the states have the authority. The federal government, the federal constitution specifically states that a right to bear arms shall not be, what's the word? Infringed. Right. So it still comes back to the hardest thing I have in all of this, other than the fact that I think, again, she's doing this with intent. Maybe re-election's around the corner.
Ooh.
But the reason I think, the thing that bothers me the most is one law for all, right? When you cherry pick your laws. So we're now, we being the Republicans or the people who are not going to obey that law, are now being forced into a Democratic camp, which is, it's wrong to only obey the laws you agree with. You can fight to change the laws you don't agree with, but you're supposed to obey all the laws. And we're arguing, look, the Republicans argue about selective application of the law. An executive order by a governor has the force of law, and now I don't think we're any better than they are. Now you can clearly break the law if you're willing to pay the consequences. So were I in New Mexico, I would continue to carry, right? Yet if I broke the law and I was brought up on charges, I would obviously fight it and have my day in court. But what these public officials are now being forced to do, and emotionally and morally I agree with them, but from a foundational standpoint, to have the sheriff and the mayor and the sheriff, the mayor, and the chief of police say we're not going to enforce the law and say this so publicly adds to the problem, even though I agree with their position. Does that make sense?
It's just, I hear what you're saying. This idea, it's basically like, we now, right, people who basically want to follow the Constitution, know it's whatever, we're now in a position to become the people that we've been complaining about for the last few years. I guess, is that kind of what you're saying? Like, oh, we've been mad that you guys are...
In this instance, we're selectively choosing the laws we want to follow. And you can't do that. Now, Lord Benjamin is just talking, chatting with us about Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King shouldn't have resisted. And Ben, I disagree with you. They should have resisted. You can resist. You can break a law. You have to be willing to pay the consequences of breaking the law. Yeah. The law was, so do I think they were morally correct? Of course they were. Right? But you have to let the system function, and there has to be one law for all. Right? So you have to drive change. You have to drive change through the system, because if you basically say the system doesn't apply, then it's the same people who go, well, you're not obeying those laws. And, even though the Second Amendment's in the Constitution, we're not going to obey that law either. Right?
Well, and see, and that's part of
But that's what they're doing.
And this is, something that you've talked about a lot, Robert, is this seemingly intentional erosion of the legal system of the United States. Right. So if we're now
at a point, intent.
Right. So if we are delegitimizing the courts, if we are delegitimizing the legal system, we're delegitimizing police officers and law enforcement, then so I just made that connection.
Think about the ramifications of this.
Yes.
So the ramifications are that we're only going to cherry pick, and we're only going to follow the laws that we agree with, right?
That's
now we have designer laws, right? You have designer clothes, you have designer colleges, you don't pick your colleges based on your politics. So now based on my politics, I'm only going to follow certain laws. Again, morally, emotionally, I agree with the local state and state officials. It is a flawed law or executive order.
Yeah.
But we become no better than they are, because we're not following. Look, the rule of law either applies or it doesn't.
There is a police officer, but if you are a law enforcement official who is, has a monopoly on violence. Okay, so police.
Say that again. If you're a law, who has a monopoly on violence?
The state, the federal government, the cities, municipalities.
But that's why you have the right to bear arms.
but that's the point.
So then break the
when
law.
they
break
have
the
a-
law, and to be willing to pay the consequences of breaking the law, to stand up for what you believe in. My issue is the public officials going on the record and saying, "Don't obey that. I'm not going to enforce the law, and all of you don't obey the law."
Well,
that's
but
an individual choice. If Ericka, if you break the law, it's your choice.
It is my choice, but it's also when law enforcement is the gun of the state, and the state is saying we're going to do something illegal, then having the expectation that law enforcement enforce something that is illegal when they have a monopoly on violence, right? So
I'm not sure I agree with the monopoly on violence.
they
but okay.
absolutely do have a monopoly on violence. That we cannot, if the governor of New Mexico says I'm now breaking the law by having my concealed carry weapon, and the sheriff shoots me because I'm not allowed to have this weapon, I'm going to go to jail, and I then have to go to court and prove myself. That
Wait, you're going to
means
go to jail because after the sheriff shoots you, or before?
if I have a concealed carry, if I break this executive order,
Right.
which to me is not legal, but that's another story. If I am walking around with my concealed carry gun or open carrying, and that is now
Right.
against the law, then
Correct.
a sheriff can arrest me
Correct.
or shoot me or do whatever.
Okay, sure.
And
Okay, let's take the shoot you off the table because again, I we
No,
we
because
don't want
if the state
we're
doesn't,
talking about
no, no, no.
monopoly on violence.
And because
Monopoly
the
on-
state does, if I defend my
arresting
constitutional
arresting
right,
you. Excuse
if
me.
I defend my constitutional right to carry, and you come to arrest me,
your constitutional right does not protect you from killing someone. There has to be just cause.
no,
you
the
cannot
just cause
equate-
is that I'm breaking the law, and that police officer feels threatened.
There's no threat to your life.
If
no.
if
Okay.
there is,
That's a bri- this-
there
this
is.
a bridge
If
too
a
far.
sheriff comes to, if a
Way
sheriff
too
comes
far.
to take my guns, and I say no, what happens? What do you think they're going to do? They're
Well,
going to
they're not
shoot
going to
me.
shoot you. They're not going to
Yes,
shoot
they
you unless
are. And I'm going to defend myself against a tyrannical government. So it even says in the Constitution, I have the right to defend myself against a tyrannical government. So if I say, no, you're not coming to take my guns, you're not coming to take my stuff, and I'm going to open carry, then according to that governor's order, the police can do whatever they deem necessary to alleviate the threat. So that means
they can only use lethal force. They can only use lethal force. First of all,
And
by the
you
way,
don't think
the
I'm going to use
Constitution-
lethal force if they try to come at me and arrest me for doing nothing wrong?
So
What happened
so-
to the Bundy Ranch? How many people died at the Bundy Ranch when the federal government came to try to take their land and they said, no, you can't come take our land? They shot and killed the family. They absolutely are willing to shoot and murder American citizens to follow the law, which ended up being adjudicated in the courts later that what the federal government was doing was illegal. Robert, there is precedent for this. This has happened. They have a monopoly on violence. And if we stand up for our rights, they will shoot and kill us. We've seen it happen over and over again in this country. So the idea that somehow we should just let them run roughshod over us.
We're gonna agree to disagree on this one. Let's segue. I want to go back to cherry picking because part of the issue I think is cherry picking. So there's another, and this we're gonna go way away from guns now.
Okay.
But we are gonna go to cherry picking. So the whole thing, and we're gonna talk a little bit about climate change because cherry picking laws, cherry picking colleges, cherry picking information. What I want is the whole truth and nothing but the truth, right? So help me God. Isn't that the oath you're supposed to swear when you give testimony? Mm-hmm. The testimony I'm about to give is going to be the whole truth, nothing but the truth. Right. And you swear on the Bible. It's a left hand, right hand. I always forget that. So you've got this guy, Patrick Brown. Now, Patrick Brown was the doctor of Earth and Climate Sciences and Johns Hopkins University lecturer. So he puts out a paper, this whole Maui fire thing. He puts out a paper that basically says the climate change heavily impacted wildfire behavior in Maui. When he was called out on it, he later said, he later said that he left out the full truth, quote unquote, his words. I left out the full truth and focused narrowly on the influence of climate change, and I didn't focus broadly on other relevant factors that contributed. Why? Because it's just the process of customizing the research for an eminent journal caused it to be less useful than it could have been. So the guy cherry picks again. So, look, we've already determined that 1,600 scientists, goes back to the last show as well, right? 1,600 scientists, including 2 Nobel Prize winners, one in physics and one, I think, in biology, basically said climate change is a hoax. They're not saying that their climate isn't changing. Climate change is a hoax. So now you have one of the lead researchers who basically says, I left out all this information. I cherry picked what I put in so I can get my study published in, let's see what the trade journal is here, about Maui. Let's see if they say, his research in order to please the editors at Nature and Science magazines, which are prestigious online science journals. So is that what we've come to?
Oh, my God.
Where everything, so you're going to cherry pick the laws. You're going to cherry pick the facts to what? The end justifies the means. I want to get published because I want to be rich and famous.
Yep.
And I want to be in this prestigious magazine. So facts don't matter. Truth doesn't matter. We can cherry pick whatever we want because the end justifies the means. What am I missing? Because we're almost done. We almost got to go to break.
Well, I think this is just, another opportunity. Just wait 5 minutes and they're going to override our constitutional rights because climate change is an emergency, a health crisis.
Climate change is for safety of all. It's another iteration.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's just
for the safety of all. Save the earth. Don't eat meat.
If we as a society
and if
have
you have
decided,
too much gas, take X-Lax.
we have just, as a society, have just downgraded truth and reason. We've said truth and reason doesn't matter, and so therefore I can just say whatever I want to justify whatever I want. That's where we're at these days, I think.
And again, it comes back to I don't think the Democrats care about process. They care about results, and anything they have to do to get results, whether it's for the safety of all, that slippery slope is now, because until you refute that argument and basically say your argument is wrong, and even if it isn't wrong, there are no facts, and you don't have the right to infringe on my freedoms, so you can, kiss my whatever. Can't say that on the air, right? We're cherry picking facts.
Yep.
For the safety of all, which is this sort of, banal platitude of, why wouldn't you want to do something that protects the safety of all? Aren't you a good member of society? No, I'm a good member of my family, and my job is to protect my family and my neighborhood and my friends and to take care of the community. My job is not to tell other people what to do. And to all my Democratic friends out there, if you don't like what's on the channel of a TV, change the channel. Don't ban the content.
Amen.
So, anywho, we're getting the high sign. We got to go. This has been, whoa. We have to go. Whoa. Folks, you can find us on Twitter at RB Chernin or Ericka
Reddick.
And you want to follow us, like us. You can even unlike us, but follow us anyways, whether you like us or not. Right? Leave us a 5-star rating. You can reach me at Robert C. at ASIC, ACEKFUND.org. Robert C. at ASICFund.org. You can find me at RB Chernin on Twitter and lots of other places on the website. Ericka, I'm going to give you the last word.
Make sure that you share this content, folks. That's the big thing is the algorithms and the overlords don't want this information shared. They do not want you informed and engaged. So make sure to share, and keep talking to your neighbors, even if it's scary.
And get off the bench.
Amen.
Get involved.
Amen.
Folks, you have been listening to Of the People. I'm Robert Chernin with
Ericka Reddick.
Thanks so much for tuning in this week. We'll see you next week. Take care.